Less than 2 weeks ago, there was a conversation that was raging on Twitter. YouTuber and technical expert The Turk was at it with some folk who are, I think, PlayStation aficionados. One of them D-Batch, the other one Nib95. Now, this is something that went down about Black Myth Wukong. Apparently, the conversation was along the lines of whether or not Black Myth Wukong could run on the RAM requirements that the Series S held. In this long conversation showing multiple data sets, multiple data points, and different realities as to how you can pretty much build a scenario, a worst case scenario in some cases, that could show whether or not Black Myth Wukong would run with limited RAM, it came out that the game actually can. To that effect, at Nib95 and also D-Batch were in a very interesting predicament. The Turk was invited, and Nib as well, to some Twitter spaces where they both battled it out. Everybody could see that this whole conversation was kind of very interesting because we'd already seen what was out and set out to be proven, but these so-called PlayStation fanboys would not lay off the Xbox Series S. In their own minds, they set more and more goalpost requirement movements that basically no one could ever reach or even touch. However, the Turk, being an FPS accountant, would not relent because one thing about numbers is when they're on your side, there's just no need for you to worry about what anybody else may be saying. More recently, nonetheless, Nib95 has blocked the Turk because the Turk basically ensured that he would be basically pointed in the light that maybe he put himself in. But believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, that's actually not the reason for my video today. I know. I wanted to give you that little intro with all of that, though, just so that when we get back into more of the context, you will not be surprised. I remember that going through this, I made multiple videos, so even though some of the conversations may have been disappeared, you can probably track them down from looking at my Black Myth Wukong videos about the Series S. This is probably going to be able to help you gain some context. But guess what happened today? This morning, Larian, developers of Baldur's Gate 3, came out with a patch 8 stress test, which is live now. Some of you who may or may not know, a stress test is designed for people to be able to play a patch of the game before the game is officially released. One company that is known for doing this is Ubisoft Massive. The Division and the Division 2 had what we called these test patches. I can't remember the name we called them. Can you imagine? I forgot. PTS. Private Test Service. That's what we called them. And they basically gave you a different version of the game that you downloaded, and you could test out new weapons, new changes, new gear, new nerfs, all that stuff before they launched it into the game itself. So I know firsthand what this kind of stuff is. Well, when they announced the things that were going to be in this patch, the Series S is going to be getting the split screen. So for all those people who have said that the Series S and its RAM this and RAM that were told that this is a matter of the developer's expertise, resources, and all, that refuse but continue to criticize this small, humble console, I hope you are ready to eat your crow. Don't worry, with my permission, you can either cook it or eat it raw. It's okay. Just choose your seasonings wisely. Because I think right now, where you all will put me in a position, especially those of you who are on the Xbox side, someone who doesn't like the Xbox console, by the way, who's a PC gamer, who's told you during the days of Gotham Knights that I'm not a fan of how they advertise these consoles, you put me in a position where I now have to basically defend the silly console. But you see, I have to put my own dislike of the console aside because the truth is more paramount than whether or not I like a box that I don't own, nor will I engage with. I think this is the most damning aspect of the whole conversation. And I made many a video talking about this whole phenomenon. I remember talking about Larian's fan when he went on that FPS podcast that is hosted by Skill Up and the gentleman from Game Ranks and some other folk. And he was talking about the Series S. He made mention how they were able to port, one of their other games, I think it's Divinity Original Sin, to the Nintendo Switch, but it took time. And so them wanting to get the game out on the Xbox, they basically had to reach out to Microsoft and say, hey, man, or Xbox, can you all drop this parity requirement because of this particular, functionality? not knowing that somewhere, somehow, deep down, they were still working on that functionality. Because a parity clause that negates the Series S basically shafts Xbox gamers. And these so-called experts, armchair developers that have been all over the place, they want that. They want to see Xbox players get maligned. Yet, Xbox has decided that it's going to hold developers who want to bring their game to their platform accountable. And boy, you should see all the deflecting and all the, running around that is going on right now. In fact, Jess Corden went ahead and he was the first to dish the initial sauce because he wants smoke. He chose violence. Hence, he said, some thoughts on Phil Spencer's comments. I want hardware innovation to be the differentiator. Well, under that, somebody said the Series S is the reason Sony are getting console exclusives that they didn't even have to pay for. I don't expect Phil to bash the current hardware, but I can't take a single word he says seriously on this matter. And then I posted this thing and I said popcorn required. And I knew the goalpost was about to shift. This person said only a year and a half later, after anyone gives a S, stupendous. Well, a year and a half ago, all of you were really loud about it. So what is the point in trying to come out here and say it's a year later? I guess all of the points and all of the noise and nonsense that was basically spewed would now need to be drank up by the spewers. Because you remember how confident these folk were. How much they beat their chest saying, the Series S was a mistake. This is what they said. When the PS4 is a console that is less powerful than the Series S, we were all looking at it going, bro, they squeezed everything in there. Like PlayStation Studios squeezed everything in there. All the publishers, they squeezed all their games into that console. It all worked. Even a game like Tom Clancy's The Division that I just showed you guys just now, and The Division 2, both were squeezed in there. Even though Division 2's own performance was quite questionable at launch, they had to do some work, but they got the thing working on the PS4 properly over time. So I think we're back to the same place where optimization is the crux of the issue, but the so-called console warriors now need to scatter back into the hole that they all crawled out from with their false claims. Because the data is sound. The data is critical in looking at exactly what it is we're talking about. You see, the conversation with Black Myth Wukong is going to still come up because people are going to go start digging the receipts. I bet you now people are more than likely maybe running around scouring the internet for those people who talk bad about the Series S, because this Baldur's Gate 3 thing has pretty much come to bust something else wide open. I think we need to give credit where credit is due to those who actually went out, took the time, did their testing, and we should also look at those who pretty much didn't know what they were talking about, that were heckling, that were acting all silly and pretending like they knew what they were talking about. And we need to question why they even bother trying to, speak on things that admittedly and even by proof they know nothing about. Nothing. So it's either they're being willfully ignorant or it's either being willfully deceitful. But by and large, this is a very interesting proposition. Everything now boils down to, can we trust anybody that just comes on a mic and comes on the internet and says something? Or are we going to look and verify their claims based on data that's available and all of the above? So in the light of what I call the search for truth as much as we can, I'm just a regular guy sitting in a little corner. Let me bring your attention back to where we already got a good sense of what was going on. However, it was obfuscated by those who want to willfully deceive you and paint a picture that pushes their narrative. This is the interview with Larian's boss talking about some of these particular issues. Now that you have this particular information in front of you about a year later, you can now dial back and say, okay, what was your perspective back then?
I can say our hope is that we get it done this year. But I don't want to commit to it because as I said, optimization comes with this annoying thing that you know where you start, but you don't know where you end.
I was reading some of the news stories about the Series S and Xbox development, and you said that you might have to make some compromises, and this is going to sound like a loaded question. I'm just genuinely interested in your opinion on it. With, current gen consoles being what they are, in my head, they are Series X and PlayStation 5. Do you think Microsoft having this kind of in-between model and then demanding that features be equal across both is kind of holding back development of games, and we're not truly going to get that next gen until Series S is left behind?
But they're not going to leave Series S behind.
But they're not going to.
They're not going to do that. So that basically means that you know what you're going to be able to do on the Xbox Series.
That is the sense right there being spoken of. You already have your development kit. You already know what's going on. You already have your, standard that says this is where your game is going to fit into. So you already know ahead of time. Why would they drop the parity? Just recently, they brought out their games. And like I've said, the biggest misstep they made was not letting Starfield cook fully so that they could show other development teams what the possibilities were. Because they want to be in a position where they say, do as we do, not just do as we say.
I mean, it defines the machine, which is fine. I think it's an okay proposition to say, hey, we have two devices, we want compatibility across the devices. I mean, so it's a platform thing. What you have to do then as a developer or publisher is decide, will I be on the platform, yes or no? Because it's like us deciding to come to a Switch or not, right? Do we want to be on the Switch? Okay, we got to make it work on the Switch and make it work well. Otherwise, we can't be on the Switch. And like this, it goes for every single platform. So I don't think that's a choice they made. And they have valid reasons for it. I think the majority of people own a Series S. So it makes sense that if you go to Xbox, that it has to work on the Series S.
I remember when this video went out, man, the dragging of the Series S. I was looking going, are many people so blind? Or, yeah, sure, I get it. A lot of people are quick to react about things, but a technical aspect of a discussion requires a little bit of humility where you can say, I don't really know. But boy, you should have seen the way these guys were piling upon this particular console.
Otherwise, you're not going to be serving the majority of people. So it'd be kind of silly to drop that. But at the same time, I understand. At the same time, it makes it challenging to develop it for that platform. And there's other platforms. Like when we did DOS 2, we did DOS 2 on PC. A year later, we did it on PS4. And then a year later, we did it on Switch. They've been working on that Switch version for a long time.
He already told y'all that this thing was probably going to be a thing, because that's how long you need to pretty much get your game to work on lower tier hardware. You just got to do the work. These guys are gifted and talented at what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it just took a lot of effort to get it there, but you have to do it. And so, yeah, for us, it was liberating that we forced ourselves into the situation that we're going to do a sim ship. Oh, we got to do a sim ship. We've never done a sim ship. Let's do a sim ship, right? Mm-hmm. And the sim ship almost became a sink ship in the sense that because it was killing us. So the moment we let it loose, we got more breathing room, so we can actually focus on the platforms as we should. And maybe that's just a model for us, right? Other developers do it differently.
I mean, business is business, innit?
But now we can focus on PC, we can focus on PS5, we can focus on other platforms after that. And that's, for us, it's going to be better because if you look at all the releases we did in the past, we always try to make the most of whatever platform is there. Like if you look at the Switch, what was done by the team on DOS 2 was amazing. It was one of the first games that had Steam Cloud saves. It runs really well on the Switch. It was really, I was very proud of them. But
I was already convinced that if they could pull that game off on the Switch, that the Series S version was basically a matter of time. And they didn't have that time, or they probably didn't want to go ahead and delay the Xbox version, or they wanted to just leverage as much money as they could. I mean, they're, a studio whose size is probably not the size of many AAA studios. So they looked at a business, proposition and said to themselves, well, let's go ahead and do it. But they knew Xbox players were asking for the game. They knew the Series X version was already going. It's similar to the PlayStation 5 version. And they looked and said, if this is the one thing that we've probably optimized up to that's going to stop the Series S version, let's try to get the game out to our own, to our fans out there. And they did. And Xbox was flexible enough to say, okay, co-op mode's not available. But now, it didn't say, apparently they wanted to come back and say, no, we can't just leave our fans hanging. We need to put in the work. So yeah, we could go back and just basically watch these interviews and go back and read these responses and reactions from a lot of folks. But you're going to realize that, man, we've been dwelling in clown world in this whole conversation about consoles and gaming in general. This is one of the reasons I decided, man, I'm going to have to say something, because for the longest time, a lot of these folk ran wild and nobody checked them. Nobody checked them. And so they thought that they could come out here and just blatantly lie about things that they knew nothing about. But now this year and last year has been a very unveiling time for those of us to be very wary the kind of stuff that we basically go listen to and to educate ourselves. There's nothing wrong. I mean, gamers are some of the sharper people that you'll meet. They can learn mechanics, learn systems, learn, competence in these games. These things should not be hard for us to learn. And most of it is also common sense. But, because somebody has an agenda to put down, another person's platform and justify their $500 box, they see the need to go ahead and keep doing this stuff. I hope you all know that there are ramifications that follow all of this. Because now this is also going to spread to the developers at Game Science. Because like I said before, the devs at Game Science, if y'all did not sign an exclusivity deal with PlayStation, come out and just say it like Larian did. But they want to skip that phase and go talk about the limitations of the 10 gigs. Oh, well, Larian is now basically solving the 10 gigs. What are y'all going to do? Are you guys going to sit there and just say 10 gigs, 10 gigs, 10 gigs? Or are you guys going to work on your game and get it ready for the series consoles? Or is it going to eventually come out that something else was amiss and you did not prioritize working on a series version of the game? A lot of questions are going to be asked very soon. I have the popcorn. Thank you very much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. And hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.